Well, welcome to the second Professor Chat, aimed at small businesses in the takeoff stage of my four-stage growth model. Now, you might recall those in takeoff are moving out of the second stage where they've been growing their revenues into the $7 to $10 million range. In this third stage of takeoff, the business has become more mature and needs to think more strategically, particularly how you ramp up your competitive offering by further differentiating your brand from your competitors, going after the same target market. So my purpose in this chat is to help you build a winning strategic framework. Now, in our first chat, we began with elaborating on a more sophisticated approach to answering the very basic question, why are you in business? In that chat, we talked about domain, addressing where you will do business, vision, painting a picture of what and how you will look at some targeted point in the future, and mission, with our fundamental purpose and our longer-term BHAG, or big, hairy, audacious goal. To achieve that BHAG, we turn to key questions. The most basic is, how do we beat our competitors with our targeted customers? You do that through strategies. Unfortunately, when talking with small businesses, I don't often hear the company use the term strategy. Strategy sets the mindset. Strategy is all about how you're going to win and beat your competition. In other words, it's your pathway to success. Now, some call it your theory or your business model, but fundamentally, it's focused on the choices you intend to make on your resources and opportunities. Let's start thinking about setting your strategies. When you thought through your domain, you set a marker on the business areas where you are willing to pursue. And within that domain, you need to identify your target market. What are the characteristics of those customers in that marketplace? Choosing that market goes hand in hand with developing your value proposition. So this is your highest level strategy, coupling your winning value proposition with the targeted customer. Now, you need to recognize you cannot be all things to all customers. For example, if the customer is looking for the lowest priced product and your offering is tailor-made and of higher quality and price, there will not be a match. In this case, don't worry about the low-cost minded customer, because you will be more expensive and it won't work. How then do we develop a winning value proposition? This is where all the textbooks I used in my corporate strategy course provided some valuable perspectives. Now, when I talked earlier about strategy being choices on the use of resources, that means you need to understand how your resources and your capabilities compare to your competitors. in a particular category, which we'll talk about in a moment? Are you behind? Are you essentially competitive? Or do you have an advantage? When you have an advantage, strategists call that a core competence, meaning you are better than your competition. Now, core competencies are going to be the key in developing your value proposition. By using this resource-based approach, you take a deeper look into your competition, assessing what makes them successful or vulnerable. For small businesses, my approach is to use the 8 criteria in my 4-stage growth model to do the assessment. Now, first time around, zero in on key competitors that you know you directly compete against. First, how much revenue is a competitor generating compared to you? If it's relatively low, then you probably have more or bigger customers and more cash generation. For example, if you have 8 million in revenue and they have 2 million, you know you have a size advantage. Maybe it's vice versa. Secondly, how sustainable are they? Listen to the customers and your people for issues they may have, like, are they constantly firefighting? Do they miss paying vendors or employees? On the other hand, can the owner walk away and their business would continue without significant problems? That's sustainability. Can you do that? Third, how do they make or provide the product or service? That leads to looking at their organization and business processes. What can you find out about their organization in terms of size and competency? Have they worked together for some time, or are they relatively new? Is there a lot of people turnover, or are they taking people from you? Do they have some specialized talent? How well do they satisfy their customers? And so forth. How do you compare? Now, in business processes, are they streamlined and quickly executing? Do they have a unique way of producing the product or service? Do they have specialized equipment? Or maybe even information systems? How do they distribute the product or service interface with the customer? Can you order the product or the service through the internet? There will be other key questions given your specific business, but you get the gist. Now, the idea is to look for those things that are making a difference in the marketplace. And many of the core competencies will come from the organization and the business processes. Who has a superior product or service? Who can produce the product or service more cost effectively? Who understands the customer's problems and can really solve them? Now we switch to start examining their level of sophistication to the marketplace itself. Can you tell if they have zoned in on a target market? Markets are often referred to as focused or broad. In focused, you know the key characteristics of your customers. that you're trying to satisfy. In broad, your product or service has a wide appeal. Now, if you take any customer that comes in the door, you can lose your brand identity. Moreover, you will have to keep rejiggering your processes to fit the customer's particular needs, which can impact your profit and margins. Again, compare yourself to your competitors and see who has core competencies in understanding the marketplace. And that gets us into another of my criterion, the actual value proposition. How clear and compelling is what you offer versus their offer? Go look at their website. That is the easiest way to see how they are trying to attract customers. Of course, looking at the website is one aspect of understanding their market strategy. How do you and they get the word out to current, but particularly potential customers? Is there a clear brand? If their marketing core competency can be a real differentiator and an advantage over you, even though you may have a superior product or service, marketing can make a difference. Or do all of your competitors have basically the same value proposition? Now, somebody who has something like they can meet or beat you on pricing, you know right off the bat they have a low cost producing strategy. If that's the case, their organization and business processes must be tuned up for that outcome. Do they really deliver on that? Does your target market expect that? Then look at the management leadership and their planning approach. Are these savvy business people who may be smaller today, but watch out in the future? What do you know about their leadership team? What do your customers like or dislike about the way they do things and run their business? Can you tell if they have planned out their core values? These values are often on the website and indeed can be part of the value proposition. So we've gone through my criteria in the 4-stage growth model. After doing this competitive research, the objective is to find those key places where you have a core competency and where they have a core competency. As you can see, this provides you with a strength and weaknesses profile. It's part of a typical SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, ultimately, the value proposition is leveraged off these core competencies. Here is where your strategic choices get made. Do we have a unique core competency or two, combination of which can be enhanced to really differentiate our proposition? You already have an approach to how you want to sell to the marketplace, but how do we make it better? Knowing these key strengths and weaknesses, you have 3 different perspectives on how to improve your current value proposition. Hopefully you have a little matrix that you've built where you compare yourself against your key competitors on what you assess are their key competencies and yours to win the customer. The first perspective involves looking for competencies where you're better than your competitors. Have you leveraged these core competencies in your stated value proposition to the customer? Can you build even further on this competency or position? The reverse perspective involves finding those areas where you are clearly behind your competitors. In this case, if it's making a real difference in selling your offering, you will need to address this vulnerability or weakness to at least become competitive. And maybe you can explore ways to make it a core competency of yours. Lastly, for those areas where everybody looks quite similar in their capabilities, are any of you thinking that maybe something could be a differentiator there in the marketplace? Take a look. See what might be something that you could go after and make it a core competency so that you actually can differentiate your value proposition. Well, we've only looked at your competitive position in enhancing your value proposition so far. The next step is to look at your opportunities and key trends or shifts in the environment in the marketplace from a broader perspective. They too can help enhance your value proposition. And that will be the subject of my next Professor Chat. Come join me.